I never meant to lie to anyone, least of all to a man like him. But when my sister, Madison, woke up that morning with a fever and panic in her eyes over missing her big interview, I said the words that changed everything. "I'll go for you." It sounded harmless then, just a favor between sisters. She'd send her resume. I'd smile politely, maybe buy us time to reschedule. But standing in the marble lobby of Westmont Petroleum, beneath a ceiling of glass and light, I realized I was wildly out of place. My dress was simple, cream cotton, belted at the waist, chosen for modesty, not corporate power. Everyone else shimmered in tailored suits and quiet confidence. I had never been in a skyscraper before that day. My world was small-town Texas, diner shifts, church on Sundays, and evenings spent caring for our widowed father. I'd always been the quiet one, the dependable one. Madison was the ambitious one. So when her big city job interview came up, she was the one meant to face men like Graham Hale, the 40-year-old oil magnate known for turning failing rigs into empires. When the elevator doors opened on the top floor, I stepped out into his world, and something inside me faltered. The hallway was silent, carpeted in steel gray. A single receptionist looked up, her voice polite but clipped. "Miss Westmont will see you now." She meant him. Graham Westmont Hale. The door swung open before I could breathe. He stood by the window, sunlight sharp across his shoulders. Tall, lean, hair silvering at the temples, he wore a charcoal suit like armor. There was something deliberate about the way he moved, each motion quiet, contained, as if he measured out energy with precision. His gaze cut to me, assessing, unreadable. "Miss Madison Hale," he said. My sister's name hung between us like a dare. I swallowed. "Yes, sir." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "You're early." I thought it would make a good impression. He smiled barely. "It does." The room smelled faintly of cedar and ink. Behind him stretched the skyline, blue and endless. And for a moment I forgot how to breathe. I'd never seen someone command space like that, as if the city itself waited for his permission to move. "Tell me," he said, fingers resting on the edge of a dossier. "Why do you want this position?" That was when my lie began to crumble. I didn't know what job my sister had applied for. I only knew it involved executive coordination, whatever that meant. My throat tightened, but something in his expression, calm, curious, not cruel, gave me courage. "I need to prove I can do more than people expect of me," I said softly. "That I can hold my own." He tilted his head. "Is that what people doubt?" All the time, a flicker of something passed through his eyes. Interest, maybe, or recognition. He leaned back, studying me with unnerving focus. "Most applicants come in rehearsed. You're not what I expected." I forced a small smile. "Neither am I." The corner of his mouth lifted. Honesty. That's rare here. The interview went on, though it felt more like a conversation. He asked about work ethic, organization, loyalty. I answered as truthfully as I could, even when it had nothing to do with the fabricated resume. When he asked where I saw myself in 5 years, I said quietly, "At peace." He didn't laugh. He only nodded, as if he understood exactly what peace cost. When it was over, he closed the folder and said, "Can you start Monday?" I blinked. "Start?" "The assistant position, the one you just interviewed for." Yes, sir." He extended his hand. "Welcome to Westmont Petroleum, Miss Hale." His palm was warm, steady. My heart gave one hard, traitorous thud. That was the moment I realized he hadn't checked my ID. He hadn't asked for paperwork. He'd simply looked at me and decided. That night, back at our small apartment, Madison lay under a blanket with tissues piled beside her. "You did what?" She croaked when I told her. "I just stood in for you. I thought he'd reschedule. And now you have the job?" "I guess we have the job." She stared at me. "I can't go in there after you've started pretending to be me. You'll have to keep it up for a while." The word pretending made my stomach turn, but rent was overdue, and our father's medication bills were stacking high. For the first time, someone had seen value in me, mistaken identity or not. So Monday morning, I walked back into that glass tower as Madison Hale. The office felt colder this time, more intimidating. Yet the moment I stepped into his domain, Graham's gaze softened just slightly. "You're early again," he said. "I like to understand the day before it starts." He seemed to approve. Good habit. Working for him was like standing near fire, controlled, powerful, and occasionally unpredictable. He was demanding but never unkind. The world called him ruthless, but I saw something else. A quiet weariness, the kind that comes from carrying too much responsibility for too long. Once, during a late afternoon meeting, I accidentally spilled coffee across his desk. My hands shook as I reached for tissues, mortified. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Hale. It's all right." He took the cup from me gently. "Accidents happen." His voice had changed, lower, calmer. Our eyes met briefly, and something in that look lingered long after I'd cleaned the mess. It wasn't desire exactly. It was awareness, the kind that felt dangerous, simply because it was real. Later, I overheard two executives whispering in the corridor. "Watch out," one said. "Once Hale trusts someone, they're untouchable." But he never does. That night I thought about that word, trust. I wondered why a man like him would fear it. A week later, the company jet flew us to Westmont's private oil field in Midland. It was the first time I'd ever flown. He noticed me gripping the armrest during takeoff. "Nervous flyer?" he asked, just unused to heights. He glanced out the window. You can't run an oil company without getting used to the ground shifting under you. I suppose that's true for life, too. He looked at me then, not as a boss, but as a man surprised to be understood. "You speak like someone who's learned that the hard way." I smiled faintly. Maybe. The rest of the flight was silent but charged. Every so often I caught his reflection in the glass, sharp, thoughtful, untouchable. At the Midland site, he walked through the heat and dust with quiet authority. Men twice his size stepped aside when he passed. Yet when he turned back to check if I was keeping up, his voice softened again. "Stay close," he said. "This terrain's uneven," I followed, sun glaring against metal rigs and rolling plains. For a moment, he stopped, looking out across the field as if remembering something only he could see. "My father built this from nothing," he said quietly. "Then he died before he could see it thrive." "I'm sorry." He shrugged, but it wasn't indifference. It was habit. You don't get to grieve in this business. You just keep building. I wanted to say something. Anything. But words felt small beside the grief that lingered in his eyes. Later, as we drove back toward the airstrip, the silence stretched between us until he finally asked, "Why did you really apply here, Miss Hale?" My pulse stumbled. "Because I needed a chance. Just one," he nodded once. "Then make it count." The plane landed back in Houston just before dusk, the skyline glowing gold. He turned to me as I gathered my bag. "Stay on the project with me," he said. "I'll need you closer than the rest, closer." My heart twisted at the word. Yes, Mr. Hale. That was how it began. My lie, his trust, and the dangerous closeness of two people who didn't know yet how much they'd change each other. The days at Westmont Petroleum began to blend together, but my awareness of Graham Hale never did. He was precision incarnate, measured words, immaculate suits, a gaze that missed nothing. The more I worked near him, the more I sensed the man beneath the reputation. He was not cold. He was contained. Every decision, every silence seemed to protect something fragile deep within, and I was becoming the secret he didn't know he had. My name wasn't Madison Hale. Every morning that I stepped into his office as her, guilt pressed heavier on my chest. Yet every time he said, "Good morning, Miss Hale," in that low, steady voice, the guilt softened into something far more complicated. We spent long hours in his glass-walled office overlooking Houston. He'd dictate reports while pacing, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened just enough to betray exhaustion. Sometimes, when he was lost in thought, his hand would pause mid-sentence, and he'd stare out at the skyline. I'd catch him there, his reflection layered over the city, looking like a man at war with his own solitude. He caught me watching once. "Something wrong?" he asked without turning. "No," I said quickly, then added, "Just wondering what you're thinking." He turned then, eyes steady. You wouldn't want to know. Try me. He considered that, then said quietly, how easy it is to build walls that look like success. I didn't answer. The words hit too close to home. My own life had been built around walls too, of duty, silence, and pretending to be the reliable sister who never faltered. Maybe that was why I'd lied so easily. I was already practiced at disappearing behind a facade. The proximity was both intoxicating and impossible. He rarely smiled, yet when he did, it felt like sunlight breaking through steel. Once, when I tripped over a box of files, he caught me before I fell, hands firm around my arms. The contact lasted only a heartbeat, but my breath forgot how to function. Careful, he murmured. I can't have my assistant injured. I could have laughed, but his voice made the words sound far too personal. I'll be fine, I managed, stepping back, though my skin still remembered the warmth of his hands. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, unspoken, dangerous, gone before I could name it. Weeks turned into months. The lie grew harder to sustain. My sister had recovered, found another opportunity, and promised she wouldn't say a word. Just be careful, she warned me. Men like him don't forgive betrayal. But betrayal didn't feel like the right word for what we had become. Somewhere between the late nights and early flights, the lines blurred. He trusted me with numbers, meetings, even silence. There were moments when I'd find him watching me across the room, expression unreadable, but intent enough to make my pulse falter. One evening, the power flickered across the building during a rare Houston storm. We were alone, the rest of the staff already gone. The emergency lights bathed the office in gold and shadow. He stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, giving calm instructions to some far-off team. When the call ended, he sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. You should go, he said. No point waiting it out. I don't mind, I said. You shouldn't be here alone. He gave a small, humorless laugh. I've been alone longer than you've been alive, Miss Hale. The way he said it wasn't pride. It was confession. I hesitated, then stepped closer. Maybe that's the problem. He looked at me then, really looked, as if realizing for the first time that I wasn't afraid of him. His jaw tightened, eyes darkened, and for one suspended second the air between us changed. He was no longer my boss. I was no longer his employee. We were just two people standing too close to the truth. You don't know what you're saying, he murmured. I think I do. His breath caught, but then, as quickly as it came, the moment broke. He turned away, forcing distance back between us. Go home, Miss Hale, he said quietly. Before I forget, I'm supposed to be the responsible one. I left, heart pounding, aware that something had shifted beyond recall. After that night, his restraint grew sharper. He spoke less, avoided unnecessary eye contact, filled silence with work. But I noticed the small betrayals, his glance lingering when I brushed past, his fingers tightening around his pen when I laughed. It was a quiet torture, the kind built not of words, but of all the things left unsaid. Then came the trip to the Westmont estate, a vast ranch outside Austin, where he hosted investors once a year. It was sprawling, sunlit, the air heavy with the scent of cedar and wild grass. He insisted I accompany him for coordination, though his tone carried a hesitance that sounded almost like apology. We arrived early, the house empty except for staff. As I organized documents in the great room, he appeared in jeans and a white shirt, sleeves rolled, gray hair tousled by wind. The casualness unsettled me more than any boardroom power. You've never been here before, he said, noticing my gaze. It's beautiful, I said. Peaceful. He gave a faint, wistful smile. My mother used to say peace only lasts as long as the silence does. Then maybe you should stop filling every silence with work. He looked up sharply, as if no one had dared to speak to him like that in years. Then his expression softened. You're right. The admission hung in the air, unexpected, intimate. That evening, after the guests had left, he found me on the veranda, barefoot, watching the horizon bleed orange and gold. Do you ever stop pretending you're fine? I asked suddenly, surprising even myself. He stilled beside me. Sometimes, when I'm around people who don't expect perfection. I turned toward him. Like now? He met my gaze, eyes unreadable. Maybe. The sun dipped, leaving us in the quiet amber of twilight. He leaned on the railing beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of his arm. My wife died 12 years ago, he said softly, eyes fixed on the distance. Plane crash. I was supposed to be with her that night. I changed my plans for a deal. The silence that followed was heavy with everything he didn't say. Guilt. Regret. The weight of living when someone else didn't. I'm sorry, I whispered. He nodded once. So am I. I stopped trusting people after that. Everyone wanted something. From the company, from me. It was easier to stay alone, I swallowed. You don't have to keep paying for the past. He turned then, searching my face as if he didn't quite believe the mercy in my words. And what do you want from me, Miss Hale? The truth hovered on my tongue. That I wanted him to see me. Not the name I borrowed, not the role I was pretending to fill. But the lie had tangled too deeply. Nothing, I said softly, just for you to breathe. He smiled then, slow, pained, beautiful. You make it sound simple. It could be. He reached up, almost touching a strand of hair that had come loose, then stopped himself. The gesture, that almost touch, said more than words ever could. The air between us hummed with everything restrained. When I left his side that night, my hands trembled. I knew we were standing on a precipice, one truth away from everything unraveling. The next morning, a misunderstanding tore the fragile calm apart. An investor's assistant, a sharp, bitter woman named Elaine, approached me during breakfast. You're quite close to Mr. Hale, aren't you? She said with a knowing smirk. I suppose every CEO needs his comfort. The implication stung. Before I could respond, Graham entered the room. Elaine turned to him sweetly. You hire the best help, Graham. He froze. His gaze flicked to me, sharp, unreadable. I saw something flicker there. Not jealousy, but disappointment. As if he suddenly doubted everything between us. I expect professionalism from my staff, he said curtly, voice like ice. The words were meant for her, but they hit me like a blow. I lowered my eyes. Of course, sir. After that, he kept his distance all day. Every look felt colder, every word weighed down by the unspoken. The warmth of the veranda vanished like it had never been real. When evening came, I found myself standing outside his study door, hand raised but unwilling to knock. I wanted to explain, to say I didn't belong in this world of suspicion and power plays, that I was just a small-town girl pretending to belong to a name that wasn't hers. But I didn't. I turned away, whispering to the empty hallway. I never wanted to lie. Behind the closed door, I thought I heard him exhale, quietly, like a man who finally felt the loss he'd been avoiding. I didn't sleep that night. The ranch was too quiet, my mind too loud. Every breath seemed to echo with the truth pressing against my ribs. I was living a lie inside the life of a man who didn't deserve another betrayal. By dawn, I decided I couldn't keep it anymore. I would tell him everything. My name, my reason, the truth he never asked for. But fate beat me to it. When I reached the main house, the staff was in hushed disarray. Phones ringing, voices low, tension thick as the Texas heat. I caught a fragment of conversation. Pipeline breach, Midland, explosion risk. He was already there, phone to his ear, pacing across the study floor. His shirt sleeves were rolled, his hair disheveled. The calm man I knew was gone, replaced by a commander in crisis. Get the safety team on site now, he ordered. Evacuate the south sector. No one goes near until I say. When he saw me, he motioned for quiet. His voice dropped but stayed firm. I'll be there in 3 hours. We handle this clean. Then he hung up and turned to me. Cancel everything. I'm flying out. I'm coming with you, I said before I could stop myself. He hesitated, eyes narrowing. This isn't a business trip, I know, but you shouldn't go alone. Something in my tone made him pause. The exhaustion in his face deepened into something else. Recognition. Maybe gratitude. He didn't argue. Within an hour, we were in the company jet, cutting through endless blue. The silence between us was taut, not cold. He stared out the window for most of the flight, phone buzzing with updates, while I sat across from him, rehearsing the confession I couldn't delay much longer. When the jet descended over the oil fields, smoke curled faintly in the distance. Emergency lights blinked across the site like warning stars. As soon as we landed, he strode forward, barking orders with quiet authority. I followed, keeping to his side, trying not to let my fear show. He stopped once to check his watch, then looked at me. "You shouldn't have come." "I chose to," I said simply. He stared for a moment, then nodded. "Stay close then." Hours passed in chaos. The leak was contained, the crew accounted for, but one worker was missing. Without hesitation, he grabbed a flashlight and headed toward the southern trench. "You can't," one of the engineers warned. "The structure's unstable." He didn't slow down. "Then no one else goes either." I went after him. The air was thick with heat and smoke. Dust coated my throat, and my pulse thundered in my ears. When I caught up, he was crouched beside a collapsed pipeline, shouting instructions to a trapped man below. "Hold on," he said. "We'll get you out." The worker's weak voice rose from the gap. "Boss?" "Please." "I'm here," Graham said, voice breaking for the first time. "I'm right here." When the rescue team arrived, I watched him stay until the man was pulled free, until the ambulance drove off, and the danger was finally over. Only then did he straighten, swaying slightly. His hands trembled. Without thinking, I reached for him. "Sit down," I said softly. "You're shaking." He didn't resist as I guided him to a low stone ledge. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The sun was setting behind the rigs, the sky streaked gold and amber, the world exhaling after disaster. "You shouldn't have been here," he murmured finally. "Neither should you." That earned a ghost of a smile. Fair point. He looked at me then, and all the walls he'd built around himself seemed to fall away. "Every time something like this happens," he said quietly, "I wonder if it's punishment. For what I didn't do, for what I couldn't save," I shook my head. "You saved him." He closed his eyes briefly. "Not her." The grief in his voice shattered something inside me. I took his hand, slowly, deliberately. "You can't keep living inside what you lost." His fingers tightened around mine. "And what if loss is the only thing I have left? Then let me remind you what else there is." He looked up sharply. The world around us faded. The sound of engines, the smell of oil, the weight of years between us. There was only that look, the one I'd been avoiding since the day we met. "I need to tell you something," I said, heart pounding, "before any of this goes further." He frowned slightly. "Go on. My name isn't Madison Hale?" Silence. Then just a breath of disbelief. "What?" "My sister was supposed to interview for the assistant position. She got sick. I came in her place to explain. But you offered the job before I could say a word. I didn't mean to lie, I just didn't know how to undo it after you trusted me." The wind carried my words away, leaving only the thrum of tension between us. "I'm not who you think I am," I finished softly. "But everything I've done here, every word I've said, that was me. The real me." For a long, unbearable moment, he said nothing. Then he stood, stepping away, jaw tight. "So all this time," he said, voice low, controlled, "you've been lying." "Yes, but not to hurt you. I just needed work." And then it became more than that. "More," he repeated, as if testing the word. "You let me trust you." His voice cracked, barely audible. Tears stung my eyes. "I didn't mean to make you feel betrayed." He turned then, eyes blazing with emotion I couldn't name. Anger, yes, but beneath it something rawer. "Do you have any idea what it costs me to trust anyone?" I shook my head. "No, but I know what it costs to lose it." He looked away, fists clenched at his sides. "I don't know if I can forgive this. I wouldn't ask you to, but I couldn't live with myself without telling you the truth." I walked away before he could answer, the evening wind catching my hair, my heart splintering with every step. Behind me I heard nothing, no words, no footsteps. Just silence. The next morning, I packed my things. My employment contract, my ID badge, the stack of reports I'd typed late into too many nights, all left neatly on the desk. A note, too, folded over his pen. You were the first person to see me for who I could be, not who I was pretending to be. Thank you for that. I'm sorry for everything else. Lila left the note and walked out of Westmont Petroleum. Days passed. I found a small apartment on the outskirts of town and started looking for work under my real name. The quiet should have been a relief, but instead it felt like mourning. I missed his steady voice, the way he noticed small things, the rare softness that appeared when he forgot to guard it. Then, one afternoon, a black sedan pulled up outside my building. A driver stepped out. "Miss Lila Hale?" he asked. "Yes," I said cautiously. He handed me an envelope. "From Mr. Graham Hale." Inside was a single line written in his sharp, deliberate handwriting. "Meet me at the ranch. Sunset." When I arrived, the world was bathed in gold again, same as that evening on the veranda. He stood by the railing, suit jacket off, tie undone, eyes distant until they found me. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "I wasn't sure you'd want me to." "I didn't," he admitted quietly. At first, he turned toward the horizon. "I told myself you lied, that it was unforgivable. But the truth is, what you gave me was real. You made me remember what trust feels like, even if it came wrapped in imperfection." I swallowed hard. "I never wanted your forgiveness. Just to be honest." He nodded. "Then be honest now. Do you still want to leave?" I met his eyes. "No." The answer trembled out before I could stop it. "But I would, if that's what you needed." He stepped closer, the distance between us shrinking with every heartbeat. "What I need," he said softly, "is to stop pretending I don't care." His hand lifted to my face, hesitant but sure. The touch was gentle, reverent, like he was memorizing something he'd almost lost. I leaned into it, tears blurring my vision. "I don't deserve this," he murmured. "Neither do I whispered. "Maybe that's why it works." His thumb brushed away a tear. "You said once you wanted peace. And you said you didn't believe it lasted." He smiled faintly. Maybe I was wrong. The next moment wasn't a kiss. It was an understanding. A surrender born not from desire but from trust rediscovered. When he finally drew me into his arms, it wasn't fire. It was warmth, deep and steady, like home. Later, as the sun sank beyond the hills, I stood beside him on the veranda, his arm around me. The silence was no longer empty. It was full of forgiveness, of fragile beginnings, of the quiet promise that neither of us had to carry the past alone anymore. He pressed his forehead to mine. "Lila," he whispered, my real name breaking softly between us. "Don't ever hide again." "I won't," I said. "Not from you." The last light faded, the world hushed, and for the first time in years, he exhaled like a man finally at peace. And I knew. Love hadn't saved us. It had simply given us the courage to be known. If you enjoyed this story, she stood in for her sister's job interview. The 40-year-old oil tycoon, he hired her on site, and never asked her real name. Don't forget to subscribe for more slow burn, emotional romance tales. Comment your favorite part. Was it the moment she told him the truth, or when he finally said her real name? Share this story with someone who believes love begins the moment two guarded hearts finally trust each other.